What is up, everybody? It's JJ Buckets here, and you're on the channel, so you already know it's that time. It is that time to talk basketball.
We have the same style. I put you on how to dress.
You put me on?
Yeah.
Now, for today's video, I'm gonna potentially kick off a new mini-series here that'll hopefully get us to the regular season, based on when I'm kicking it off, obviously, and the content matter that'll be at hand. But I'm gonna do a mini-series here just looking at some of our most important and crucial Raptors heading into the new 2021-2022 season. And holy hell am I excited. Which, speaking of, is a great segue to how I'm gonna do these videos. So I'm gonna break it down a little bit here in terms of having sections for reasons of excitement regarding this particular player, reasons for potential concerns regarding this player, and then just the closing thoughts or like the final verdict on how this season could potentially go for said player. And I'm gonna kick things off here with probably my favorite player on the Raptors currently, OG Anunoby. So with that being said, let's hop into the videos and let's talk about why there's reason to be excited about OG Anunoby heading into the season. Kicking things off with the reasons to potentially be excited about OG Anunoby, let's start with, the end that is kind of already there and is an established product, the defensive end. So on the defensive end, I can with utmost confidence say that OG Anunoby is one of the best defenders in the NBA, and frankly one of the most underrated as well, because I can confidently make that statement as a Raptors fan, obviously having the exposure to watching OG, watching his defense. But I feel like the NBA world doesn't, fully appreciate OG's defense, and I mean, it's reflected by the fact that he's missed out on, I think, like 2 years in a row now. He's missed out on the all-defensive team both years where I thought he really had a great case to at least be on the All-NBA second team, but just some guys with, frankly, I'll say it, better name value made it onto those teams over OG, who frankly, you can make the argument was more deserving of that accolade. But that's just me getting that rant out of the way, because I genuinely think OG should have been an all-defensive guy, if not the past 2 seasons, at least. Now, yeah, the past 2 seasons, I'm not even going to say at least last season. I think the past 2 seasons, OG has been all defensive caliber player. He has that gift that he's one of the rare players in the NBA, and modern day basketball just bodes so well for him. He is one of the most versatile defenders that can really comfortably be thrown at positions. I'm going to say 1 through 5, but I'm going to say that with a caveat, but I'm going to say 1 through 5. OG can guard 1 through 5. My only caveat with that is, when it comes to the 5-man, you don't exactly want him, guarding the big lumbering 5s, like the really big centers that still play this game. You can comfortably throw him on an undersized center, like say, I guess most relevant example off the top of my head, given that's the last playoff series that the Raptors were a part of, you can throw a guy like OG to guard, an undersized center like Daniel Tice and feel reasonably comfortable that he's gonna, hold his own against those guys. But just in general, he can hold his own against bigger players, I think is the real point that's trying to be made there. OG often gets tasked with the Giannis assignment whenever the Raptors face up against the Bucks, and I know that Giannis is technically a 4, but he got a lot more minutes at the 5 last season, and he's obviously just a massive player. So just long way of saying OG is an incredibly versatile defender, and he defends, I'd say, almost every position at a very high level, some obviously better than others, but on the defensive end, OG is one of the best defenders in the game. And that is ample reason to be excited about that. Now, the other part of this equation is obviously the offensive end, right? And this is where the conversation gets more interesting, because OG Anunoby has improved on offense every single season. His scoring average has gone up, and it's quietly just things have been getting better. And then there's one obvious thing that's still, Raptors fans, I would say, are sitting here, and probably like the NBA world to an extent, is sitting here waiting on to see that jump, and I'll get to that a little bit more in the next section of this video. But I think it is reasonable to expect OG to have another uptick in his production. I'd have to pull up the numbers here, so bear with me for a second, but he averaged 15.9 points per game on 12.1 field goal attempts last season, which is good production at this point in his career. Obviously, it's not superstar level production by any means, but I think the reason to be excited there is he did that production on 12 field goal attempts a game, and obviously with Kyle Lowry leaving the team and being gone from the team, his 13 field goal attempts per game last season is going to be up for grabs, which means there are going to be more shots to go around for every individual that's going to be on that basketball court, and I would not be surprised if a lot of those shots fall to OG based on a couple of things. Just in general, I think he's going to have a more prominent role in the offense, so he'll get more field goal attempts a game. And on top of that, I think even a guy like Fred VanVleet, who obviously had more shots than OG last season, is going to be kind of put in a role where he's more of a facilitator, more of a playmaker this season, if out of necessity more than anything, because he's going to be playing that one spot for the Raptors, which again could just lead to more shots for OG Anunoby. And I crunched the numbers here. I took a look at the games last season in which OG Anunoby shot at least 15 field goal attempts a game, which is kind of where I'd like to expect him for this upcoming season. And in those games, he averaged a very healthy 20.6 points per game on 46% shooting. And if that's the kind of production that hopefully we might be anticipating from OG this season, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this could finally be the quote-unquote breakout year that, you know, Raptors fans have been waiting on from OG. I think with Anunoby, you've seen him take good strides every single season, but we haven't seen him take that massive leap. And I'm not saying this leap is going to be massive, but when it comes to reasons for excitement, OG Anunoby's potential breakout season is something that's going to be a bit of a narrative, I think, heading into the upcoming NBA season. Now, when it comes to reasons for concern, I touched upon this briefly in the last section. I touched upon a couple of things that I'm going to touch upon here. So, the narrative is, I'd say Raptors fans are kind of expecting the breakout season from OG. There's a couple of things that I could potentially see getting in the way of that. And I guess they kind of go hand in hand, where, first of all, obviously with Kyle Lowry being gone from this team, you lose a lot of playmaking in that regard. Because Kyle Lowry, he was a fantastic facilitator, always looked to get everybody involved on offense, and you're going to be missing that from your starting lineup this season. Obviously, Fred VanVleet is going to try to fill the reins as best that he can in that role, but nonetheless, I think there's going to be a bit more of a reliance on creating your own offense when it comes to this season. Obviously, you know, with the defensive juggernaut that I think that the Raptors are trying to build, a lot of that offense will hopefully be coming, you know, in transition, you know, just off great defensive stops and just pushing the pace and getting some easier looks. So in that regard, you know, there could be a little bit more easy buckets to go around, but obviously in the half court, when the offense stalls out a bit, you know, a lot, like, guys are going to be just thrust into positions to create looks for themselves, I feel like, at least a decent amount of the time. With that being said, I feel like that is probably the major aspect of OG's game that Raptors fans have talked about just wanting to see improvement from. And don't get me wrong, this isn't me saying that he can't improve. Frankly, I, to whatever extent, expect him to. And we've seen, like, again, flashes of it, even, you know, as recently as last season, where him putting the ball on the floor and creating off the dribble for himself and getting offense in that regard. If he can do that consistently, that will be, I'd say, like the make or break aspect of whether or not we see that potential breakout season in his, you know, upcoming season. That was worded really weird, but bear with me. You know what I mean. You know exactly what I mean. With that being said, that is, again, that is the aspect that is the biggest area of concern, but also it's the biggest area for improvement. And again, we've seen flashes of it. It's been there. It's just seeing that on a consistent basis is the important part here, because in the starting lineup, with Fred being your main facilitator, and I'd say obviously once he's healthy, Pascal Siakam probably being the second best starter, Yeah, when it comes to playmaking, excuse me, you know, there's going to be a bit more of a reliance on just creating your own shot, creating your own bucket, and whether or not OG is going to be able to create that for himself more this season will really be, I'd say, the biggest determining factor of the areas of concern regarding whether or not, you know, the OG that we see next season is the, you know, budding star that I'd say a lot of people are anticipating, or whether or not he settles into this position as a an emphasis on very good role player, but not more than that, at least for next season. When it comes to the, I guess, final verdict, closing thoughts, whatever you want to call it here, I do believe this is the season where we will see that jump, like so to speak, for OG Anunoby. I'd like to think his scoring average this season will probably clock in somewhere close to 20 points per game. And I'm very excited to see the version of OG that has more opportunities within the offense and, you know, really makes his name a little bit more recognizable for the casual NBA fans and for the NBA world, and kind of puts himself on the map. I think it is a fair expectation to look at OG Anunoby and see, with the opportunities at hand, that he will make his strides on offense. He will get more looks, he will get those reps, he will get that repetition, and he will consistently take more and more shots, hopefully, and it will result in some healthy, efficient offense where, again, he's hopefully close to a 20 points per game scorer, coupled with his all-NBA level defense. OG Anunoby puts himself on the map this season. I think that is my bold claim for this player in this first player preview prediction series. I don't know what I'm officially calling it yet, but yeah. That's gonna do it for me today. What do you folks think? Are you anticipating a big jump from OG as I am for this season, or do you see somebody else kind of stepping into that role of production, like, you know, potentially Gary Trent Jr., who I will obviously talk about in future videos here? Or do you expect Pascal Siakam to reemerge? Basically, what's the case here? Do you think OG is going to fill some of the shots that are going to be left on the table, and do you think those shots are going to drop for him? Comment below, let me know your thoughts. Other than that, you know the drill, folks. Like the video, it takes like a second, and it makes a massive difference for me and the channel in terms of just being more seen, and it is greatly appreciated every time. Genuinely, every time folks do it, I really appreciate it. Other than that, you know, the subscriber count is something I care about. I want to hit 1K by the end of the year. With the momentum of this channel, that's a very reasonable goal, and I'd like to keep that momentum going. So if you're on the fence, here's me telling you to get off of it. Subscribe to the channel. Other than that, that's gonna be me for the day, and I will see everybody next time.